The Murray-Darling Basin covers more than 1 million square kilometres, spans 4 states and 1 territory, and is home to more than 2.4 million people. The basin stretches across Queensland, New South Wales, the Australian Capital Territory, Victoria and South Australia. With so many people and the environment relying on the health of the rivers, the basin must be managed carefully. Because rivers don't stop at state borders, water management in the basin is shared. It's also shared because under the Australian Constitution, the Australian Government does not have direct constitutional powers for managing state and territory water resources. These powers sit with the basin states and territory. In August of 2007, the Australian Parliament passed the Water Act 2007, which, in the national interest, established the legislative framework for managing water in the Murray-Darling Basin and for providing information on Australia's water resources. So, with each state and territory having their own governments and agencies alongside the Commonwealth Government, who exactly is who in the Murray-Darling Basin? Well, let's answer that question. The main elements of Murray-Darling Basin water management are policy, compliance, river operations, environmental water, and independent oversight. Let's start with the Australian Government agencies. The Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, or DECU, is the Australian Government's main water policy department. DECU has the role of developing national water policy, representing the Commonwealth in basin negotiations, and supporting the delivery of the Basin Plan. The Murray-Darling Basin Authority, or MDBA, is the central coordinating body for the basin. The MDBA develops and oversees the implementation of the Basin Plan, coordinates basin-wide river operations on the River Murray system to the border of South Australia, brings states and the Commonwealth together to manage shared rivers. The Inspector General of Water Compliance, or IGWC, is the Commonwealth agency responsible for compliance. The IGWC is the independent Commonwealth integrity agency for the Murray-Darling Basin and oversees, investigates and enforces basin regulation under the law. The River Murray spans 3 states, New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. At a national level, river operations are managed by the MDBA on behalf of the states under the Murray-Darling Basin Agreement, ensuring flows and allocations are managed fairly across the 3 states. The Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, or CHU, holds water on behalf of the environment. The role of the CHU includes holding large volumes of environmental water, deciding when and where that water is used, working with states and local water managers to use water to keep rivers, wetlands and ecosystems healthy. There are also independent oversight bodies providing checks and balances across the system. The Inspector General of Water Compliance oversees and regulates the Commonwealth and Basin State agencies under the powers created in the Commonwealth Water Act 2007. As an independent statutory office, it preserves public trust in basin water safeguards for ecosystems, industry and community use. The Australian National Audit Office, or ANAO, is a specialist public sector practice providing a range of audit and assurance services to the Parliament and Commonwealth entities. These agencies don't manage water directly. They scrutinise, review and report on how the system is working. Now on to the states. Let's start at the top of the basin in Queensland and work our way down to New South Wales, the Australian Capital Territory, Victoria, through to the end of the system in South Australia. In Queensland, the main water policy department is the Department of Local Government, Water and Volunteers, or DLGWV. They're responsible for water licensing, planning and implementing basin requirements in Queensland. In addition, the DLGWV also acts as Queensland's compliance agency. Sunwater are responsible for Queensland's basin river and infrastructure operations. Sunwater own and operate dams and channels, supply water to irrigators and other users. The Department of Environment, Science and Innovation works closely with the Australian Government's CHU to deliver environmental water within the state. When it comes to independent oversight, each state and territory holds only general parliamentary audit powers through their state audit offices, or through the use of independent expert statutory reviews. The exception is New South Wales, which we'll look at next. Working our way south and crossing the border, we reach New South Wales. In New South Wales, water policy is looked after by the New South Wales Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, or New South Wales DECU. They're responsible for planning and implementing basin requirements across New South Wales. The Natural Resource Access Regulator, or NRA, is New South Wales' water regulator and compliance agency. NRA monitors water use, enforces licence conditions, and investigates water theft and non-compliance. Put simply, NRA makes sure people use water legally in New South Wales. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, is the primary environmental agency for New South Wales and also plays a role in ensuring water quality standards are complied with. Water New South Wales are responsible for river and infrastructure operations. In addition to operating dams, weirs and other infrastructure, Water New South Wales is also responsible for managing water licensing and accounts in New South Wales. New South Wales TQ's Environmental Water Branch manages and delivers water for the environment in New South Wales, including water held by the TQ. New South Wales is the only state where a state-based agency has specific independent basin water oversight powers. These sit with the Natural Resource Commission, who are legislated to review and audit water sharing plans. With other states, the Audit Office of New South Wales holds general parliamentary audit powers. Of note, Snowy Hydro plays a crucial role in the Murray-Darling Basin by managing the Snowy Mountains scheme, which collects and redirects water from the Snowy Mountains eastwards to the Murray and Murrumbidgee river systems. While Snowy Hydro's primary function is renewable energy generation, its other core purposes is to provide water flows from Murray and Murrumbidgee river systems across New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory, with that water then making its way across northern Victoria and into South Australia. Next up is the Australian Capital Territory, or ACT, the only jurisdiction located entirely within the basin. Water policy is looked after by the City and Environment Directorate, or CED. This includes managing basin plan commitments. The CED is also responsible for water licensing. The ACT's Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, acts as the compliance agency in the territory. They regulate water laws, water take and access under the Water Resources Act of 2007 and handle pollution matters under the Environmental Protection Act of 1997. ACT commitments to the Murray-Darling Basin are managed in accordance with the ACT Water Resource Plan. Icon Water is responsible for river and infrastructure operations. Environmental water is managed by the Office of Water, who sit within the CED. The ACT Water Resources Act of 2007 sets out the flow requirements needed to maintain aquatic ecosystems in the territory. General parliamentary oversight and audit powers are held by the Australian Capital Territory Auditor General's Office. Making our way south, our next stop is Victoria. In Victoria, water policy is looked after by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, or DECA. Victoria operates a little differently when it comes to compliance. Here, it's looked after by state-owned water corporations. Victoria's state-owned water sector is made up of 18 water corporations. They look after things like water supply, drainage, salinity mitigation services for irrigation, and water for domestic and stock purposes. These water corporations are also responsible for river and infrastructure operations, including the distribution and management of water. Environmental water is managed by the Victorian Environmental Water Holder in partnership with the TQ. Catchment management authorities across Victoria have specific responsibilities for water management. They also work with the Victorian Environmental Water Holder to coordinate water releases for maximum ecological benefits. General parliamentary oversight and audit powers are held by the Victorian Auditor General's Office. Crossing over the Victorian border into South Australia, we find that the Department of Environment and Water, or DEW, is responsible for both water policy and compliance. DEW are also joined by 8 regional landscape boards, established under the Landscape South Australia Act 2019. These landscape boards each report to the South Australian Minister for Climate, Environment and Water. South Australia Water looks after river operations and infrastructure operations. This includes River Murray operations carried out on behalf of the MDBA. DEW also manages environmental water in partnership with the TQ. General parliamentary oversight and audit powers are held by the South Australian Auditor General's Office. Working with all of the basin agencies, the Australian Government has an important role in water policy that supports the successful delivery of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. And why is the Basin Plan important? Because the Basin Plan sets out the rules to make sure that enough water remains in the river systems to protect its health, supports the health of the environment, and meets critical human needs for water, especially in times of drought. Hopefully this helps you to better understand and see who is who in the Murray-Darling Basin.